directly into the microphone.
Okay. And before I do that to the court.
Yes. Thank you.
So at this time, Your Honor, the state would call Carrie Harrison.
And you're free to address the court however you'd like to. If you prepared a written statement, you're free to just read that if you choose to do that. But what would you like to tell the court?
Okay. So, good afternoon, Your Honor. Thank you for the opportunity and time to speak today. For the past year and a half, I have listened to my son referred to as nothing more than JDM. Initials, letters, characters with no meaning, history, or proof of life. Jack Dyer McDonough was a real person with hopes and dreams for the future, and Jack's life mattered to me and many others. Jack was a son, a grandson, a brother, a nephew, a great-nephew, and a friend to many. He was a gifted artist, a violin player, an athlete, a hunter, and an angler. He also enjoyed playing video games, listening to music, and working on cars with his friends and stepfather. Jack was sensitive, wise beyond his barely 18 years of age, caring, goofy, funny, witty, hopeful, excited for the future, and loyal to his friends and family. Jack would give the shirt off of his back to anyone who needed it and was never afraid to voice his opinion, whether it was popular or not. Jack did not conform to society. Jack was my only child. My everything and my life was dedicated to him. From walks at the wildlife sanctuary, to coaching his middle school basketball team, going to movies, to having friends sleep over on weekends, to water park getaways, volunteering at Happily Ever After, walking dogs, and driving Jack and his friends to dances. I cherished every moment of our time. Since Jack has passed away, my life has become empty and meaningless. It is no longer filled with laughter, joy, hope, or a sense of purpose. Anytime I begin to feel a bit of happiness, I remember that Jack is gone, and that feeling disappears. Any accomplishment brings little fulfillment. Any relationship I have is damaged, as I can no longer be the outgoing, caring, involved, capable person I was prior to Jack's death. Any future I once had is gone, and dreams for my son are shattered. I will never see Jack graduate high school or college. I will never see him marry or have children of his own, and I will never see him mature and grow into the man I believed he could have been. Any regret of words and actions are now permanent fixtures in my memories with no resolution. I was robbed of all hope and possibilities for the future. I will never forget what happened every minute of every day. If I could put myself in Jack's place, I would. And I do believe that you, Malia, are responsible for Jack's death. However, I also believe that you are deserving of forgiveness. And I do forgive you, Malia. I forgive you because I know that Jack would forgive you. I also do not believe that you are 100% responsible for Jack's death. There are other individuals who should be held accountable in this horror, including the task force who purchased fentanyl from you and allowed you to continue selling this poison for 4 days, during which time my son passed away from one of your counterfeit pills. Although I forgive you in my heart, I still believe you need to be held liable for your part in my son's death. Malia, I hope that as you mature and step out into your second chance at life, you will remember that this is your opportunity to honor Jack and yourself and become the person that Jack could have been had he been given the second chance.
Thank you. And then DDA Lemke, you may continue.
Thank you, Your Honor. Malia Sotelo sits before the court today after having been convicted of delivery of fentanyl as a party to a crime, possession with intent to deliver fentanyl over 50 grams, first-degree reckless homicide. There's also a read-in and dismissal of another delivery of fentanyl and possession with intent to deliver THC. These offenses involve the defendant selling fentanyl pills to a great number of young people within our community and ultimately led to the death of Jack McDonough. Until the statement of Carrie Harrison, I actually didn't know what she was going to say. I didn't ask her at a time what she would say. And I think what she said is similar to the way the state views these cases. It's not easy as a prosecutor and convicted of very serious charges. We have the loss of Jack, who just turned 18 years old at the time that he died. And when I listen to the statements that I hear from the mother now of Jack, indicating that this was her only child, that her life is not the same, and that her life will never be back to the same. And hear of the description of Jack, that he was someone that would give the shirt off his back. So significant, the type of individual that our community needs, and he's taken and he's gone. This case has been about Ms. Sotelo with the waiver hearing, with what she's been charged with, the pre-sentence investigative report. Although you're to consider the Gallian factors, which do include character of the offender, there's two very significant ones: serious nature of the offense and protection of the public. Those outweigh, they're to be looked at with respect to Malia, but those also are to be looked at by this court and what's happened. And it's not just Malia and what would be the appropriate sentence for Malia based upon the character of the offender. You had the insight from these letters. It's not just what Carrie told you. The letter from Ron and Carolyn Baton, the grandparents of Jack, indicating that they hope that there will be justice for Jack because they know they're never going to see him walk through our front door and say, "Hi, Nana," and "Hi, Pops," because he's not going to be able to. The letter that Ron Baton also wrote, that telling the story to the court about a second chance he had in his own life, but that Jack was not granted that second chance. He'll never marry, have children, or a career. Who knows what he might have accomplished? He was a talented, smart, and athletic young man with a wide spectrum of friends. And Malia Sotelo, he indicated, should be held accountable. That he hopes she uses her second chance in life. Because no matter what you sentence her to here today, Your Honor, Malia Sotelo, if she is given an incarceration sentence as recommended by probation and parole, and the DA's office will as well, she's going to get out. She's going to have a life. She can marry. She could have kids. She could have jobs. She could spend time with friends. And Jack's not going to have that. And then there's the letter from his great aunt, Elizabeth Lampark, indicating that Jack's death has left her as well as the family with immeasurable, unending pain, no bottom to their grief, and miss him every single day. And lastly, from the friend, which is an example of the friends that were described from the family that he had, Summer Turner, indicating that her dear friend Jack is never going to be back, that she misses his phone calls, video calls, text messages, and that they had a lot of plans together. These letters, Your Honor, these letters tell you about Jack McDonough, telling you a little bit about Jack. So, as the Gallian factors indicate, there are three factors. First, character of the offender. Ms. Sotelo is before you with respect to these significant crimes. She's facing 40 years on the first-degree reckless homicide. She is facing 15 years with respect to the delivery of fentanyl. She's facing another 40 with the possession with intent to deliver fentanyl. The state believes that based upon the offenses before the court, we are recommending 20 years in the Wisconsin State Prison System bifurcated into 10 years initial confinement and 10 years extended supervision. Leah is a young person. We've taken into account that with our recommendation. I did the jury trial on Casey Gogos, who was a 21-year-old man convicted of just one count of the first-degree reckless homicide. He received 20 years initial confinement from your predecessor, Judge Atkinson. He was delivering the De Pere Public Schools back then. We now fast forward to Malia Sotelo, and this gets to the second galleon factor, serious nature of the offense. She was delivering these drugs throughout schools to young people. It's manifested with the young man who just turned 18, Jack, who died, as an example. It's just not the investigation that the Drug Task Force looked into with respect to this case and what was going on. It wasn't, sadly, a one-time thing. We outlined, and that's why I was asking about the transcript, we outlined that there were numerous customers of Malia Sotelo. This case isn't only about what happened to Jack. It's about all the deliveries that she was doing. And then, Your Honor, that's not only outlined previously in the testimony that we offered to you in the waiver hearing. It's manifested in what's located in her bedroom at the time. There were approximately 700 pills. 7 of 10 fentanyl pills is a lethal dose. Based upon those numbers, she could have killed approximately 500 people, about 490, with the amount that was only located in her bedroom at the time. And the reason I asked for these exhibits is I wanted to make sure that the court was reminded of the amount of drugs located, the amount of money located, and then the things that were found on her phone. Exhibit number 1, Your Honor, is the photograph of the drugs, the fentanyl that's located in her room with all the monies stacked in there in the bills. Exhibit 7 is the photograph of she and her sister with many, many bills. Exhibit 8 is the photograph of all the bills that are laying on the floor. $100 bills, $50 bills, $20 bills, filling an entire floor. Exhibit number 9, again, is another photograph of her with all of this money. Exhibit number 10, and this was something that had been previously filed, and exhibit number 11 were the photographs of the guns. In re-looking at the transcript, I know Ms. Fritz at the time was saying, yeah, but you can't show that she's in that photo with the guns. Okay? All I have to say is whatever young person in our community has this amount of fentanyl located on them with all of these hundreds of dollars of money and then guns. 3 of the factors that are looked at in drug cases: money, large amounts of money, drugs, and the possession of guns. That is not typically on a young person. Exhibit number 12, this is also a photo of Malia flashing a large amount of bills, and she is in this photo with it. And exhibit 13, again, more money, and exhibit number 14. All different areas, appear to be different rooms. Clearly by the dates you can look, Your Honor, all the different dates at the top of these photographs to see that this isn't a one-time thing. Again, just so it's clear for the record, I did provide these for Ms. Fritz to also look at. I'm going to hand these back up to you right now. So ladies, so Your Honor, with respect to the evidence in this case, multiple hearings, I'm not going to belabor all of that. and what that is. But with respect to the large amount of drugs that were being dealt with, that were located, that were identified, I think one of the things that's just so important and got raised at the hearing also, as we mentioned some of the text messages, is a text that we've referred to previously in this case, where there's a discussion about Sotelo saying, West, I got 400. And then the person saying, RN, send Addie, referring to Adderall. Sotelo, you gonna do? The person 22. Sotelo, no, I'm cool. The person Sotelo, I don't. What was the importance of that? It was the fact that although there is information being alleged that Sotelo had an addiction, and that's important to outline for the court, that she was running an operation, she was running an enterprise. And in preparing for this hearing, I took the time to look at the oral ruling that you did in this case, because I think that this court did, you indicated, I'm reading page 6 of your oral ruling, of drugs. Drug involving a school as a setting, and she talks about drug trafficking like she's an adult, at one point demonstrating knowledge of how deadly the substance was, but still just wanted to make money from it. So this is a major drug trafficking allegation. That is a significant event in the community, and it would depreciate the seriousness of the offense that's alleged to transfer this case to juvenile court. And it's necessary to deter drug trafficking in the community by the juvenile and other juveniles. That, Your Honor, sums up exactly what this case is about. And that gets us to our third factor. And our third factor is protection of the public. And the statute outlines that another ancillary concern for you to consider is deterrence to others. When we have a young person that is delivering fentanyl to young people, and in this case, not only just doing deliveries that are outlined in the controlled buys for which she is convicted of now, and also a read-in on a different one, the fact that the possession with intent to deliver all the drugs that were located with her, that in and of itself would require a significant sentence. But now you have the loss of Jack McDonough, and that's the first-degree reckless homicide. With respect to the recommendation, and that kind of gets to why the state felt that it's not only the recommendation that the defense had their person give in this recommendation on the alternative PSI, of just giving her probation because it says she's already sat time. Well, with respect to the loss of a life, the time that's lost for this family with Jack McDonough is infinite based upon what Malia did. And as a result, the Galleon factors scream for an important, significant sentence, not to punish Malia, but to also assist Malia in understanding what she has done. The PSI indicated that it appeared that she did appear to be remorseful, and maybe she is. I have no idea. I don't have contact with Malia. But the PSI recommendation still was recommending a significant prison amount, I think 8 IC based upon the high end on the initial confinement. The state believes that 10 years initial confinement is appropriate and 10 years extended supervision. And Your Honor, we believe, after speaking to the family, speaking to others, and knowing these types of cases, that 10 years of extended supervision is honestly just as important as the 10 years initial confinement. She is a young person. I think she's going to need guidance. sentences or what she would serve in this case. Once she gets out, we want to make sure this doesn't happen again. She is someone whose sister had gone to prison for delivering drugs, and there's information throughout this case that she learned how to do that from her. Well, I'll tell you this, if she learned that from her sister and there's an acknowledgement in that case, then this case is truly sad, because Malia had a crystal ball of what could happen to her if she delivered drugs just like her sister did. And instead of learning from that, she did the same thing. And why? If you believe her text messages, because she wanted to make the money. So, Your Honor, I think a period of extended supervision, we're not often talking as long about that as initial confinement, but I think it is critical in this case to ensure that this time Malia does learn. She had that crystal ball with her sister. She didn't learn from it. She did it. And she did it to the point she took the life of somebody. Based upon all of the information in the case, we do believe that our recommendation is a honor. We would note that we believe by probation and parole are appropriate. We are asking for the restitution, the compass evaluation, the ODA, the absolute sobriety. I don't believe it was addressed as part of the offer. There was going to be a stipulation to the forfeiture CV-14 for the $3,976 and the $584. We were asking for the no contact with the family of Jack and court. Based on the fact the how it stands.
Attorney Fritz asked to the asset forfeiture part of it. Is that?
That was part of the negotiations.
Okay, thank you. Then Attorney Fritz.
Sure, Your Honor, thank you. I did want to start by just clarifying some information about Casey Gogos. G-O-G-O-S, the state had mentioned that that individual had received a lengthy prison sentence from Judge Atkinson. And I did want to differentiate that individual from my client in the sense that that individual had a prior conviction for manufacture of delivery, a conviction for a burglary. He then was convicted of first-degree reckless homicide with felony bail jumping charges attached at a jury trial. Then he had a conviction for a manufacture, delivery of heroin and bail jumping, and delivery of heroin and bail jumping filed. And he received 15 years and 10 years extension. He had previously been for the burglary cases, much different. He was in 2008 and 2009. In this case,
I just want to clarify, I think you're forgetting there was a consecutive sentence, and that got us up to the 20 years.
And what was his age?
I think it was 22. I think I was acknowledging he was in his early 20s, 22, 23.
At least in his 20s?
Yeah, and that was my point with why we were asking for something less in this case.
Okay. Attorney Fritz, continue.
that's fine. I also think we need to acknowledge that he had a record and other things that he resolved at the same time. Moving forward, my client does have 550 days of credit in 23 CF 42. She has 577 days of credit in 23 CF 2236.
Can you repeat the numbers again?
550 days in 23 CF 42. 577 days in 23 CF 2236.
Does the state agree with those numbers?
Yes.
Okay.
Your Honor, thank you. If we look at the totality of the time that Malia has spent in custody, that is 1 year, 7 months. If you're looking at just months, that's 19 months of an individual's life. She was 15 at the time that she was placed into custody. I think we all agree that these type of cases are very difficult. It's not just because there's been a loss of a young man's life, but it also involves a child. You've had a lot of information about Malia that I think don't have at sentencing. Not only do you have the investigations, but you've gotten to sit through numerous hearings in which a lot of testimony was taken concerning my client's background and these incidents. I do want to start with Malia's remorse. We had submitted some letters to Your Honor from Malia, which included a letter to the victims, included a letter to Your Honor, and she will make a statement today as well. And throughout all of that, what you see is that Malia is very remorseful. She's taking responsibility for her actions. This is not something that I coached her to do. This is not something that I told her, you have to do this, Malia, or you're going to get a sentence. This was something that, from one of the first times I met Malia, she said, I have a letter I want to give to Jack's family. And of course, as her defense attorney, I had to say, let's just hold off. Like, we got to make sure that we go through this process. I need to make sure that I'm protecting your rights. But it was from almost day one that she wanted to get that letter to his family. Malia did not have jury trials in these cases. Oftentimes with a Len-bias offense, we do have jury trials because this is a offense. But Malia did not want to do that. She didn't want to put the victim's family through that. She didn't want to slander his character. She didn't want to, go into the fact that he himself suffered from addiction and have to go through all of that concerning, an individual who has a substance use disorder. She didn't want to put them through that. But throughout these proceedings over the last 19 months, she has been dragged through the mud as a 15-year-old. Her traumatic life up to this point has been on display for all. She's been villainized throughout this entire process, even though she herself is a child. I will tell Your Honor, and you can see from the letter that she submitted to you, that she remains positive. She remains optimistic about her future and about what she can do for our community to do better. I do want to address Kim Roberts' pre-sentence investigation. Kim Roberts used to work for the Department of Corrections. She was a PSI writer herself when she did work for the Department of Corrections. She was a social worker within our prison institutions. I did include her resume attached to that pre-sentence investigation submitted. Your Honor, I did not tell her to recommend anything. I think that a defense pre-sentence investigation, I tell them to writer to recommend something has no value at all. This is strictly Ms. Roberts' opinion based on her history as a social worker and based on her history 18 months of jail that Malia has already served. It's also due to the fact that Malia throughout her life has never been given the same opportunities that juveniles should be given, that children should be given. We heard a lot about Jack's athletic ability, I think he played the violin. Those were all opportunities that Malia never had. Growing up, she didn't have a supportive grandma and grandpa. She didn't have a support of anybody. CPS, the people in the community who are supposed to be caring for her, really did nothing. It was hard to find her mother, so they left. You saw from the letter from Malia's sister, Mariah, who has been very successful at this point. She has her own children, and she said, we didn't have anybody to, say goodnight to. We didn't have a mother who was reading us a nighttime story. That's not something that Malia has ever had. So that's Ms. Roberts' recommendation, is a lengthy period of supervision. And I agree with the state that supervision is going to be probably more important in Malia's case than any term of initial confinement, if you do give her initial confinement. And that is because she has to learn all the skills that an 18-year-old should know that she was never taught. Another option, Your Honor, would be to place Malia in custody until her 18th birthday. What that would allow, it would allow her to go to Copper Lake, because that is where she's going to go if you give her a prison sentence. She will go to Copper Lake until she turns 18 years old. She'll be able to engage in all of the services that they have. Your Honor heard a lot of testimony about the services they have to address substance use disorder, to address trauma, to address mental health. If you were to place her in custody until her 18th birthday, She would, at that point, have spent 2 years and 4 months in custody, 840 days. Following that could be a lengthy period of supervision where she would have been able to learn some skills while she was in custody. Another option, if Your Honor thinks that prison is necessary, we think that the 10 years initial confinement the state is asking for is extremely everything in this case, especially the fact that Melia is a child. We would recommend a 5-year initial confinement sentence with 10 years of extended supervision if Your Honor thinks that prison is necessary. The 5 years initial confinement would be on 22 CF 2236, which are the delivery charges, and it would be 3 years initial confinement on 23 CF 42. Those would run concurrent for a total sentence of 5 years initial confinement. What that sentence structure would do, Your Honor, is it would allow Melia to be engaged in programming for substance use disorder, but not until she had served at least 3 years in custody. The 23 CF 42 case for programming that is available at Tachita. However, in 22 CF 2236, she is eligible. So once she served out the sentence on the ineligible offense, she could hopefully get on the wait list to do the substance use programming, and that would allow her to have some skills upon her release into the community. It is the same course of conduct throughout these cases, Your Honor. The state could have chosen to just amend one of the criminal complaints and add the other charges onto there. They didn't. They chose to maintain them as 2 separate cases. However, it is the same period of time that is being alleged. It is deliveries of the same substance, and one of them was fatal. Should Your Honor adopt this recommendation for 5 years initial confinement, once she gets out of custody, this sentence would have been 1/4 of her life. Next, I do want to talk, and Ms. Harrison had spoke about this too, about the drug task force. The state had submitted the transcript for Your Honor, so you were able to see that testimony. And one of the things I did ask a narcotics investigator is just kind of about the timeline of these cases. And he testified that November 29th of 2022, the drug task force engaged with Melia. They engaged with her from a controlled buy. They knew who she was. It is my belief they knew she was a minor. They did not arrest her at that point, in which there was a controlled buy and drugs and money were exchanged. It was December 2nd of 2022 that Jack bought a pill and overdosed. It was then December 6th of 2022 that the drug task force did an order up for more pills for Melia, and at that point she was arrested. She did not have any pills on her. I specifically asked the drug task force, why did you not arrest her on November 29th of 2022? Their response was, and this is page 223.
Your Honor, I'm going to object to the relevancy. This is just a smear campaign on behalf of the defense at this point. I think our focus is her client, what should happen to her client. I don't know what the relevancy of that would be.
Like I said earlier, relevancy is a pretty low standard at a sentencing hearing. And Attorney Fritz is talking about the case. So I think I will let you continue to make your point, and the court will just weigh the arguments.
Thank you. So it is page 223 of that transcript, line 20. The response to why did you not arrest Melia on November 29th was, quote, it's our common policy and procedure in Brown County Drug Task Force to build a case, to show that there is a habit of selling drugs and that they just didn't sell drugs one time, unquote. What this shows to me is that the police, drug task force, the people who are tasked with protecting our community, were making the choice to allow a child to continue after they were aware she had access to and was selling illegal substances. Also in that testimony, the narcotics investigator talked about how dangerous this substance was, the fake Percocet pills which were testing positive for fentanyl. The drug task force knew how dangerous they were. He testified to that, and yet again, they allowed this to continue just to build a case against Melia. Gun bias offenses are difficult. They're difficult because it's not a homicide like other homicides, where there is violence, where there are gunshots, where there are stabbings or strangulations. In this case, I believe Jack suffered from a substance use disorder. He used a substance, and he planned to use that substance with his partner. However, he used that substance without his partner, knowing the risk of what he was doing. Not only was there a generalized risk with using these substances, but his partner had said, Sophia had said, her and Jack had been told at a Narcotics Anonymous meeting shortly prior to his overdose about the bad batch of perks that were going around. Again, during the investigation, the investigating officer asked Sophia, well, why would you use them then? And she didn't have a response. Sophia every day was asking for Percocets to buy from people. Jack himself had purchased a Percocet. This isn't a violent situation like most homicides. The very thing that caused the death of Jack wasn't forced upon him by Melia, but it was something that he was not able to resist because of his substance use disorder. The same substance use disorder that Melia herself suffers from. Melia as a person. I agree that these proceedings have been about Melia. They have to be. She's the defendant. I wish sooner we could have used Jack. That the court system thinks we're protecting victims by just calling them initials. But I can see how that would really make somebody feel like their child did not matter. I can assure you that Jack mattered. But these proceedings have been about Melia because she's the one who's facing 90 years in prison. She was 15 years old at the time of this incident. As I stated, she was raised in an environment with drugs, abuse, violence, significant mental health concerns for those around her. She was shown the glamorized life of drug dealing by her older sister. I do just want to clarify, Your Honor, the older sister was not sentenced at the point in which Melia was charged. Her sister had been arrested shortly before Melia. You have read in the pre-sentence investigations that her sister would take her along on these drug deals and would show her the amount of money that she was making and glamorize that sort of lifestyle. It was at the point in which her sister was arrested that her sister's clientele started reaching out to Melia because they had seen Melia with her sister. To me, that is just sad because these individuals who were adults buying drugs from an adult chose to reach out to a child to continue to have her sell drugs to them. Her sister was an adult who should have been protecting Melia from her environment, from the environment that they grew up in. Melia wasn't given the opportunity to succeed as a child. She was parentified in the sense that she had to care for her younger sister, but they were both wanting for their basic needs: food, clothing. I do want to read from page 43 of the PSI. I think the Department of Correction agent Huss did a very good job, probably better than I could, summarizing some of the information that she had learned about Melia's life. It says, the defendant learned from an early age that she could not trust adults to take care of her or keep her safe. Within her home environment, drug use was prevalent to the point the defendant believed it was normal. As the defendant got older, she turned to substance use herself to cope with the feelings of hopelessness, anxiety, and the intrusive thoughts related to prior traumatic experiences. This, in turn, led to the defendant spending time with an older and more negative peer group. You heard the testimony of Dr. Patterson. She specializes in juvenile psychology, and she spoke about PTSD, and specifically how PTSD affects Melia. How Melia suffers from flashbacks, difficulty sleeping, re-experiencing the trauma that she had growing up. She talks about the history of suicidal ideations that Melia had, and specifically she talked about how PTSD affects an already developing brain, how it impacted Melia's ability to plan for the future, how Melia was focused on the survival of here and now, which you can clearly see from that text message, Your Honor, where she says, I'm just trying to make money, because to her, that was her survival. The PTSD also affects her brain in that she had a foreshortened sense of the future, which we can all see in the decision-making that took place during this time frame for Melia. Your Honor, there have been a series of cases. They are called the Miller Trilogy. These are Supreme Court cases that talked about sentencing when it came to minors or juveniles. Specifically, they talked about death penalty sentences. They spoke about juvenile life without parole sentences. Generally, they spoke about sentences when it comes to children. And the U.S. Supreme Court, in this Miller Trilogy, relied upon social and medical science that demonstrated youth are less culpable for their actions, and they are more amenable to rehabilitation than adults. That science proves lacking in maturity and impulse control. I do want to read from Miller versus Alabama. So in this case, this is a 2012 case. It is a decision that talks about...
It's a U.S. Supreme Court case?
It is.
Okay.
Would you like the site?
Just say the name again, Miller v. Alabama?
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Yes. So it is talking about Roper came before Miller. It's called the Miller Trilogy because Miller was the final. And I'm read from the decision. Those cases, Graham, rely on significant gaps in adults, lack of maturity, and an underdeveloped sense of responsibility, leading to recklessness, impulsivity, and heedless risk-taking. Second, more vulnerable to and outside pressure. Control environment and lack the ability to extricate themselves from horrific crime-producing settings. And third, a child's character is not as well formed as an adult's. Fix, and his actions less likely to be evidence of irretrievable depravity. There's three things in here. It specifically talks about Malia. The fact that she lacked impulsivity, that she was more vulnerable to, specifically mentioned family in this case. As I spoke about before, Malia grew up in an environment in which drugs were the norm. She was raised in drug trafficking houses. She was raised in trap houses. She was shown by her sister that this was a, extravagant lifestyle that provided you money and everything that you could want. Since Malia has come into custody, she has been able to have her needs met. She has been able to have meals. She has been able to have safety. Her have been something that I submitted. These were things she had to think about when she was on the reading through me is that Malia talks about the fact that she didn't even know you could go swimming at the YMCA. She didn't know that there was like a place you could go and just hang out and go swimming. Those are the things that a child is shown by their parents. Malia has taken advantage of everything that she can while she's in custody. I did submit to Your Honor some letters. There was one most recently from Heather and Alyssa through Young Life Green Bay. This is a religious program that comes into the jail and meets with juveniles in there. It talks about how at first she was, however, she really has opened up over the last almost 2 years. They say she's a source of positivity and hope in her environment at the present. She has been taking advantage of the schooling while she can. She goes to school every day, which, like, duh, she's in jail, why wouldn't she? But she doesn't have to go to school. She could just sit in her cell and say, I don't want to go to school. I don't care about my future. We have a letter from her school counselor, Ms. Johnson. She states that Malia has voluntarily spent time engaging in school district offered enrichment activities such as Young Life, Golden House Healthy Responsibilities Program, My Brother's Keeper Mentor, and additionally was able to meet with her once a week focusing on social emotional learning. She said Malia was both engaged and reflective during these times. And then we also have a letter from Golden House verifying that she was taking part in their outreach services that they offer at the jail. I had spoken about the amount of credit that Maylia has in this case, and it is difficult to overstate the difference between a jail and a prison when somebody is serving a sentence. When an individual is in a jail, I don't know how many people are aware of this, but in the Brown County Jail, there's no rec time. Died. The only time that Maylia has seen sunlight, felt sunlight on her face, felt wind of any sort, is when she is put into a shuttle to come to court. And in that case, she's probably even just put into the garage to put into a shuttle to come to court, to go into a garage to come up to court. So spending 19 months of your life as a child in custody without really having much movement, without having fresh air, without having sunlight, without having the ability to communicate with people other than on a phone that is crackly and hard to hear. These are the things that Maylia has been, I would say, enduring over the last 19 months, all the while taking every opportunity that she can to better herself so that she can be successful when she is released. There was at one point, Your Honor, that Maylia was being held in her cell 23 hours a day because she was a child being held in an adult jail and they didn't know what to do with her. I do want to talk about the CCAP, the court tracker data that I had submitted to Your Honor. I do think it does speak for itself. However, I thought this information would be helpful because I did pull data on individuals under the age of 18 who were convicted of reckless homicide in the state of Wisconsin. There were 10 individuals that came up on that report when I searched those data points. As I stated, 3 of those individuals received probationary sentences and 7 received prison sentences. 2 received over 60 months of initial confinement, with the most being 66 months of initial confinement. This is the most initial confinement that a defendant under the age of 18 who has been convicted of reckless homicide has received in the state of Wisconsin. I did also submit some other information about other cases. One of them was a Rock County case, which also involved a 15-year-old. It's a 2023 case, very similar to May. He was denied reverse waiver. His attorneys tried to requested to waive him back into juvenile court. The judge denied that. And he was sentenced to 591 days in custody, which was the time in which he had custody pre-trial. And the judge, 40 months of in that case. I also included some adult sentences in the chart in cases involving reckless homicide as well as other charges. Some understanding of the different sort of factors that could go into a sentence. There's an individual on there who had a jury trial. Victims in the state through that expense and time. I understand that every defendant has a different story. They have a different reason to be brought for sentencing. They have a different background. However, the state is asking for 10 years initial confinement for Maylia. That is a sentence that is not even close to anything that an individual under the age of 18 has received for a reckless homicide case. Lastly, I do want to again point to another section of the pre-sentence investigation, and I'll end again on Maylia's remorse and understanding of the gravity of the situation. I will be reading from page 43 into 44. During the interviews, the defendant readily held herself accountable for her actions without justifying, without blaming others, or minimizing the seriousness of her behavior. At times, the defendant demonstrated wisdom beyond her years, and at other times, this writer had to remind herself the defendant's thought process was due to her young age. The defendant's remorse and understanding of the impact of her actions appeared genuine. She did not view herself as a victim, and she demonstrated the ability to step back and examine all of the different victims her choices created. She spoke at length about the young man who lost his life, as well as his parents and extended family. The defendant viewed her younger sister as a victim, not only because she could no longer care for her, but also, and more importantly, because the defendant modeled the same destructive behavior to her that was modeled to the defendant. She viewed all of the people she sold drugs to as victims because she aided in their addiction, and she discussed the damage she caused to her community. The sentence today is going to bring Jack back. It's probably obvious as well that no sentence is going to solve the loss and pain that have been felt by Jack's family. However, we also have to remember that Malia is a child, and we believe this sentence of 5 years initial confinement and 10 years extended supervision is appropriate, should Your Honor think prison is what is needed. The other options would be placement at Copper Lake until her 18th birthday with an extended period of supervision.
Thank you.
Your Honor, I just want to clarify, since both parties referred to it, Casey Gogos was 18 years old when he was charged with first-degree reckless homicide. He delivered heroin to RR. He was sentenced at age 19, and Ms. Fritz is correct on the Len bias charge. He was given 15 years initial confinement and 10 years extended supervision, just on that charge.
Okay.
Including bail jumpings that came with it, taking into account the fact that he had numerous other cases.
Okay. I think I have enough information. Case. State added something, anything else for argument purpose?
No, it
Okay.
wasn't appropriate for them to say anything after I have, but here we are. So Maylee is going to make a statement.
Ms. Sotelo, now is your opportunity to address the court if you choose to do so before I issue the sentence.
First, I would like to thank you for allowing me to speak my piece, and I want to now sincerely apologize for the damage I've caused to our community and the pain I've inflicted. I know no words can fix what I've done. I'm sorry. But I could not come up here today without expressing how remorseful I am. I'm not speaking here today out of self-pity, nor am I asking for sympathy, because I know I'm not the one who deserves it. I'm speaking today to ensure you that I will do everything and anything to change, not only for me and my family, but for our community. Moving forward, I'm committed to being a member of our society, and I understand the seriousness of what I've done, and I understand there will be consequences for my actions, and I will accept those. And I will only use my time productively. I will participate in any services or any treatment that I'm provided with, as well as continue my education, because I only want to grow. There no that you will never see this behavior from me again. This is not who I am or who I want to be. I want to give to other inmates so they can as well conduct themselves out in society. I help other people and give back to the community, because that's all what you deserve. And I'm Sarah. There's not. Can heal and find peace again. Thank you.
Thank you. I the protection of the public, the against the rehabilitative needs of the defendant here. character of the defendant and deterrence, applying the Galleon sentencing factors to those objectives. This is a case where I think if you picked up one of these firearms pictured in the exhibits here, you would never intentionally repetitive drug trafficking, the amount of substance that you had, how nasty these substances are that you were trafficking, that killing someone at some point was an absolute certainty that that was going to happen. And then that's exactly what did happen. Because this specific substance and substances that are similar to it are so deadly to the users, and not to mention young users who don't really have any idea what they're doing or what they're doing when they start using them. In this case, the pre-sentence investigation is recommending 6 to 8 years of plus 5 to 6 years of extended supervision. The state is recommending 10 years of initial confinement plus 10 years of extended supervision. The defense pre-sentence investigation recommended 10 years of probation with time served, 19 months that she's served, and then alternatively, if the court believed that a prison sentence was necessary, to not exceed 5 years initial confinement plus 10 years of extended supervision. This is a prison case. This is not a probation case. Even if we eliminate the fatality part of this case and just have the drug trafficking here for a sentencing, it's a prison case. I mean, this is a lot of drug trafficking, a very huge amount of drugs that we're talking about, cash, and then the photographs depicting the firearms as well. What sticks out immediately is that you are very young. You're not even an adult here today sitting in court. You're 17 years old. I think when you were arrested, you were even 15 years old. You are presently in high school, or you would be in high school if you were not in custody. You do have a minor that's basically somebody who was your age. You are taking responsibility for the offenses here today after pleading no contest and making a statement that you are accepting that responsibility even here today, and even pleading no contest to some very serious charges and avoiding to have a trial on the issue as well. Based on everything that's been presented, I do think that you are remorseful for what happened in this case, and then there has been evidence presented that you did not have a very good family situation growing up, you did not have a very good family support structure, and that you did experience childhood trauma and exposure to drugs yourself when you were very young, and the list of substances that you self-reported using is a very shocking list of substances that basically included everything that you can possibly think of having used in the past at your age. So it is a very shocking to the senses type case. The mother of the victim, Jack, did testify here today, and it'd be hard to visualize the act of drug trafficking in the community better than Jack's mother did here today, and you can just hear the pain and sorrow in her voice and see it on her face. The just substantial negative impact that drug trafficking has on the community as a whole, particularly when it kills somebody and that person is basically taken off the face of the earth forever. He's never going to have contact with his grandparents again, like they pointed out, and the mother is robbed of having that relationship and having the experiences and going through life achievements with her child, like she testified to, and just that emptiness and meaninglessness that she feels, loss of happiness, loss of joy, loss of purpose. And then even after all of those emotions that she told us about, she was even able to express that she had forgiveness for you as well at the end. The nature of the offense, like I'm getting at, is enormous in this case. There are a lot of aggravating factors that have been identified here today. the great number of transactions that took place in this case, the targeting and distribution of young people in a school in this case. So this is certainly not an isolated case. This is a case of drug trafficking, and then at some point admitting that you knew that it was a deadly substance, and admitting that you did want to make money off of participating in the drug trafficking. The items found in your bedroom corroborated the aggravated nature of this case with the massive number of pills that were found and the very large amount of cash that's kind of highlighted by some of these photographs. I mean, there's possibly hundreds of thousands of dollars that are depicted in some of these photographs, and in one of them it's almost like somebody is bathing in the cash in one of the photographs. So to the state's point that a large amount of drugs, a large amount of cash, and firearms coming together make for a very dangerous, volatile situation. And the point of that is that you can't rely on law enforcement to protect your business that you're participating in the drug trafficking, because it's inherently illegal. So guns have to be brought into it too, because that's how you protect your business assets, because you're having possession of thousands and thousands, like I said, possibly hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of product that you're in possession of. In terms of the drug aspect of this, I mean, the argument that case, she might have just been released back into the community after one isolated buy. But what the Drug Task Force did is that they did build a case, which now gives us a full picture of what you were participating in. If they arrested you after that first, we wouldn't have most of the information that we have here today, that this is an enormous drug trafficking organization that was being participated in here by Ms. Sotelo. So it does make total sense to the court why you develop that. You get to try to get to the highest point of the drug trafficking organization, and because of developing that investigation, that's you. I mean, you're in possession of this huge amount of controlled substance. I also do think there's value in comparing sentences with other individuals charged with similar crimes, convicted of similar crimes, for the purpose of sentence consistency with similar type offenses. But at the end of the day, this is a sentence and the court balancing the factors that are presented to it according to the Galleon sentencing factors that the Supreme Court outlined for us. When I consider all of these factors, I do think that a prison sentence is necessary. Like I said, I do think it has to be a long prison sentence as well to highlight the significant nature of the offense. I am going to sentence you to what the state's recommending, 10 years of initial confinement plus 10 years of extended supervision. That would be on the 2 Class C felonies concurrent. On the Class E felony, it'll be 5 years of extended supervision, or 5 years of initial confinement plus 5 years of extended supervision concurrent. Compass evaluation, AODA assessment, follow through with all treatment recommendations. I will order the asset forfeiture. High school equivalency degree or GED obtained during the supervision. Full-time employment or school, you do have to pay the court costs. Restitution right now will be set at the $15,154.81. The defense can ask for a restitution hearing on the remaining request. If no restitution hearing is requested, then the remaining amount would be ordered. You do have to provide a DNA sample to the Department of Corrections as well. Anything to clarify from the state?
No, with the stipulation on the $15,000, the family needs to move on, Your Honor. They're not going to ask for the rest of the money.
Okay, so then the $15,154.81 would be the final restitution order then. Days credit on 23 CF 42, 577 days credit on 23 CF 2236. Did I say the numbers correctly?
I have to look back.
550 and 577. Okay. I will make you eligible for any prison programming. The Department of Corrections independent decision on what you qualify. I will reserve 3 years, 8 years before you can participate in any programming, though.
Your Honor, so the way that you have structured the sentence, she would not be eligible for programming.
Okay.
Would you consider 5 years on each case consecutive, so that she would have to serve that initial 5 years, and then she'd have to serve another 2 years before she'd even be eligible for programming?
Okay, so you're saying if by doing 10 plus 10 concurrent on each case,
You were making her
is
ineligible
it
for
is it because the
programming.
first-degree reckless homicide is not
Yes.
eligible?
Yes.
Okay.
But if you did 5 years initial confinement, 5 years extended supervision, on each case, consecutive to each other, she'd have to serve that full 5 years, because that's not eligible. And then, if you're saying she has to serve 3 years in the next sentence, she'd have to do that.
That would be consistent with what I just suggested
It would.
about the minimum 3 years, and this way it'd be a minimum of 5 years instead of 3.
Correct.
So I think I am going to modify it to that. So the total sentence will still be 10 years initial confinement plus 10 years of extended supervision. However, it's going to be 5 plus 5 on the first-degree reckless homicide charge consecutive, 5 plus 5 on the Class C felony, and 23 CF 2236, 5 plus 5 consecutive. On the Class E felony, 5 plus 5 concurrent. Does that
Yes.
accomplish what we're doing?
I think so,
Yes.
but they're asking for 30 days on the credit then, because with consecutive, I don't know that she's entitled to all that credit. We can have 30 days.
Okay.
I can give you independent credit.
Once I issue the sentence today, though, it's final.
Right.
So if the credit is wrong, we're stuck with what I just
So
issued
we'd
today.
rather do 30 days.
We're not stuck with it. The Department of Corrections will send us a lovely letter that says you
Okay.
have miscalculated the credit, please change it.
Well, I mean, I can't change my sentence, though. The actual sentence structure we picked after today. Understood?
Understood.
Okay. Anything to clarify on that from the state?
No, just that we can have 30 days on the credit.
Yes.
Yep,
Yes.
thank you.
Attorney, well, you do have the right to seek post-conviction relief, including assistance to the Public Defender's Office. Anything else to clarify, Attorney Fritz?
No,
Okay, then that concludes the sentence. Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you. Oh, you know what? I'm sorry, Julie, so I meant to have, let me put the other years. The redact, they were able to redact the statement, and just, had no time to redact that. But let me get that overall, so we're better, we know we have that right now. Oh, yeah. We gotta figure out, I said, I think we've got a good idea of the protective order. You can just double check. No, we follow modified as a criminal cases. The manifest law has been exactly criminal cases that. No, it's old. No, we've always, hold on, let me get somebody to get that word here. My secretary, Jen, is out for the week.